Joining me now is my colleague and friend, Jacob Soboroff, MS Now senior political and national reporter who's been covering immigration in the United States for years. And by the way, I really want to talk to him about something else. That was the plan. He's the author of a new book called Firestorm, The Great Los Angeles Fires and America's New Age of Disaster, which I'm going to discuss with him. But as is always the case, Jacob, if one plans for you to be on the show, there is going to be an immigration matter to discuss with you. I know you've been following this all very closely since Wednesday in Minneapolis. What's your take?
Ali, first of all, thanks to you and your whole team for having me on. The way that I look at what's happening in Minnesota is that it's part of a much larger puzzle here. And the consequences that we have seen, the killing of Renee Nicole Good, is what happens. It's what Tom Homan told me would happen when Donald Trump instituted the largest mass deportation program in American history. 2 days after the raids in L.A. started, Tom Homan said to me that he believed someone would die on the streets of the United States. Given the level, the tone, and the tenor of these operations and people's opposition to them. And it hasn't just been one person, as you pointed out earlier in your broadcast. We have seen people die in Oxnard, California. We saw a migrant worker run across the 210 freeway in Los Angeles trying to escape from the Border Patrol. In Chicago, we have seen people killed. And when Donald Trump instituted this program, it was modeled after that 1954 Dwight D. Eisenhower program that deported 1 million Mexicans and some Americans. Now we are seeing in Donald Trump's mass deportation program the deaths of immigrants and the death of an American citizen.
Jacob, I will stay close to you on this story, obviously, but I do want to shift because this book is really important and it's about one of the most important things that's happened in America. The book is called Firestorm. It's the Great Los Angeles Fires and America's New Age of Disaster. And in it, you tell a story about a young man whom you encountered during your reporting. You wrote in part, quote, "As we drove through the neighborhood on the beach side of Sunset, just south of my old synagogue, we came upon a young man who told us that his name was James. He had ridden his bicycle wearing safety goggles like you'd find in a high school science lab and an industrial-grade respirator with 2 pink canisters attached as he attempted to put out spot fires at what I assumed was his house, when homes just down the block were engulfed. Can you please text my mom and dad to let them know I'm okay and our house is still standing?" he screamed to me as the wind whipped his brown hair. "Their names are Bob and Mimi Khan. I took their number, and I did. Bob and Mimi, this is Jacob Soboroff from NBC News. James wants you to know the house is okay and he's safe. He just doesn't have cell service." Thank you so much, his father texted back. "Oh my, thank you," Mimi wrote. "All of our neighbors are asking about their homes. What does Wildemar and Junaluska look like near our house?" I didn't have time to text them back or to tell them that I was worried about James's safety as he was using a small handheld shovel to pick up and stomp out embers on the ground around the property. This is just a testament to your storytelling, because your storytelling is all about people and how they see this. But this is just one of the many people who were literally there. This isn't like after a hurricane or a tornado where you're trying to make sense of what happened. These are people who are trying to save their homes in real time.
In real time, Ali, and I'm so glad that you brought up the story of James and his parents, Bob and Mimi, because this is a book about people. It's also a book about politics, and we've been talking about immigration policy. You could see the impact of immigration policy on the fire recovery in this book, but really it's a book about people at the heart of this, and it might read like a sci-fi thriller at times, but what it really is what you just read, a minute-by-minute account of what it was like to be in the middle of what I thought was, as I watched my childhood neighborhood burn, my past carbonizing, but really it's the fire of the future. And this is a true as true can be story about the lived experience, not just of Angelenos, but as you have seen, perhaps more than anyone at our network with your coverage both in the field and in the studio, what it is like to experience this new age of disaster in America. When one happens, you have been there. This one happened to occur in the neighborhood that I was born and raised in, but it is coming for all of us soon. And I think that this book really makes that clear.
And during this time, and I remember texting with you during it, but this was, people were telling us what happened, like you were, and seeing their history or their present being affected. You were reporting live on air throughout the entire thing while you were watching what was going on in your neighborhood. Let's listen to a little of your reporting.
This is a neighborhood I know very well. I was born and raised in Pacific Palisades, California,
It is unimaginable to see it in this state. This is a beautiful community of 23 or 24,000 people in a coastal community along the Pacific Ocean where the Santa Monica Mountains meet the sea. I have been evacuated from my home. I grew up in a house up at the top of a hill that you can't see because of the smoke right now in this neighborhood.
Jacob, there's a fine line as journalists about where the story is about you, where it's not. But this is that remarkable intersection where you and Katy Tur could tell the story differently because you could relate to it a different way. But tell me a little bit, take me behind the curtain about how difficult that was to balance your responsibility as a journalist and to bring, as far as you can, objective news to the audience and the personal, which was very relevant to the telling of the story.
You know, by the way, Ali, just watching that video back, that's around the corner from Bob and Mimi and James Caan's house. And I should tell everybody that they're okay, and the house survived. Good. And when you got, no spoilers, but at the end of the book, in the epilogue, I let everybody know that I touched base with them as I was writing the book, and they're doing okay. As far as being a journalist and getting into the personal, I think you model this for us better than anybody that I know. We're journalists, but we're also human beings, and this idea that we need to be neutral or somehow removed from our own emotions as people, I think, is a fallacy as a reporter, whether it was covering family separations or being there in the middle of the fires with Katy, my dear, dear friend who also grew up in the Palisades. What you know, our viewers know, when they're going to hear from me is that I am going to give it to them straight, and I'm going to tell you what I think and what I feel, and I will always be fair. I will always be honest. I will always tell you the facts on the ground, but I'm not going to pretend like I don't have emotions. And this was the most difficult assignment that I had ever experienced, to try to communicate to our viewers what was happening in the costliest wildfire event in American history while watching my own neighborhood burn to the ground. And that's why I wrote Firestorm, to explore what it meant for me. I needed it, but also what it means for our planet, how it could have happened, and whether or not it's going to happen again. And I think that you will see when you read this book that it is very clear that it's going to.
And unlike all of the things that I've covered in the past, the element of disinformation here is remarkable. Like, it used to be, nobody ever doubted when I was covering a hurricane or a tornado or a shooting that it actually happened, or it would happen for the reasons it happened. Now there's a whole layer of nonsense that surrounds these things that you have to wade through as a reporter to try and get to the truth.
I will never forget standing outside, ironically, after Katy Miller, Stephen Miller's wife, texted me to ask me to go check on Stephen Miller's parents' house in the Palisades, seeing the Truth Social messages from Donald Trump and the live streams from Elon Musk that were spreading, literally pouring rhetorical fuel on the very real flames of the fire, confusing people about why the fire was happening, whether there was some mystical tap that could be opened in the Pacific Northwest to pour non-existent water on the flames in Los Angeles. There are very real questions about accountability and how this happened, and about infrastructure, and about changes in the way we live, and about climate change that require further investigative reporting and accountability from all politicians, Democrat and Republican, Bass, Newsom, and Trump. But the misinformation and disinformation that is part of this new age of disaster that I write about is unavoidable at this point, and it is making these disasters worse for everybody involved. And I think unless we reckon with that, and until we reckon with that, they will only get worse.
Jacob, thank you for this remarkable account. Thank you for your work on immigration. You are a very important person to us. MS Now's Jacob Soboroff, a great friend of our show. He's got a very important new book out. It's called Firestorm, The Great Los Angeles Fires and America's New Age of Disaster. It's available now.